Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Let's Talk Real Estate. And this is our monthly meetup where we get together and talk about, answer the question of how do we use real estate as a wealth building tool. I am your host, Dexter B. Jenkins. New lips tonight. And so before we get started, I want to do a couple things, run a couple commercials. Number one, we want to thank New England Christian Television Network for allowing us to freely use their studio. Give it up for the New England Christian Television Network. So we thank God for them and what they're doing. And what we ask is if this network has been a blessing to you, whether you're watching this show or whether you watch their other shows, we ask that you sow a seed into it. And so I think Brother Eddie will put up a QR code at some point during this to allow you to be able to sow a seed into this ministry, because if you know anything about business, it takes money to make it run. And so we want to be a blessing to a New England Christian Television Network. And so avail yourself of that at either sometime today or during this broadcast or later on. So that's the first commercial. The second thing is I mentioned some time ago that we were doing a real estate summit. So that is set for June 10th. That is all set for June 10th. You guys are the first to, actually you guys are pretty much my first inner circle who knows about it. So that's actually something now. It actually went live, I think, yesterday. So we have 150 seats available to that, and don't drag your feet inside, because we only got 150 seats. So what I would do if I were you, I would sign up this week, because I haven't put it on social media, haven't done anything else as of yet, but I'm about to start doing that because we want to make sure that we fill that event. And then the other thing is as I drop my piece of paper here, I love live TV. We talked about my course, or our course that we came out with. Some people have questions as to how do you get that course. There is a QR code on this card. If you have it, just put your phone over that, and that will take you exactly to where you would need to be in order to be able to order. It's a 3 ebook download, and then there is actually 3 ebooks, and then there's a 1 video. And actually that video I love because it talks about exactly what we use to run our business. So it is a valuable course for you to partake of. All right, so that's all my commercials. So talked about New England Christian Television Network. Talked about the conference coming up June 10th. I'm really excited about that. And then we always talk about our course, because we want to give you guys resources in order to help you to build your business. Now, without further ado, as you guys know, every month we bring a trusted, valuable real estate professional to the table. And so tonight is no different. Now, I know this woman a little bit different than I know the other the other professionals. As you guys know, this is my wife, Kendra. And so everybody here know, but I'm talking to you guys out there. Kendra Jenkins is my partner in business, my partner in life. We've been married 26 years in a couple months, June 7th. We've been together 30 plus years, have 3 children, 1 grandson and all that. So basically we're doing life together. But beside that, Kendra is very talented in the area of design. And so what I want to do tonight was have a discussion around how do you design for your business, because designing for your business is very different than you designing for your own personal home. And so, and learning how to do that is a skill. And so we've done a number of houses, and Kendra has been the brain trust behind that. So I've been following her around Floor and Decor and Home Depot and all those stores. And so I picked up a few things, but everything I picked up has been because of my lovely wife. So without further ado, welcome to the Let's Talk Real Estate stage, Kendra Louise Worthen Jenkins.
You saw my names.
That's right. Gave them all of them. All right. So this is your stage tonight. And so what, like we said in advertising this, what we really want to do tonight is talk about what's the difference between designing for your own personal home versus designing for your business, and so on and so forth. So let's start there. In your opinion, what is the number one or one of the things that people need to keep in mind when they're doing that?
So in the case where it's a flip, it's not your house. That is like the biggest thing I think that people are challenged with, because clearly it's your money that has been used to purchase that house. but it's not your house. It's not your taste. What you're trying to do when you are designing a house for a flip is you want to speak to the masses, right? You don't want to make it too specific. You don't want to make it too where someone could walk in and you spent thousands of dollars on some tile and they walk in, they're like, no bueno, like it's a non-starter for them, right? So a lot of you watch HGTV and it's always this high design, right? And that's TV. You know what I mean? If you're designing a house for someone or for yourself, you can put all of those touches and those very specific design things in. But when you're designing for a flip, you want to speak to so that most people that walk into that home are going to really appreciate the design, really appreciate and be able to see themselves in it and see their stuff in it, which means you work in a very neutral palette, to be perfectly honest with you. But there's a way to do a neutral palette without making it boring or flat or sterile. Excuse me, I'm talking all day. And many of the ways that you can do that is through, there's some classic things that never go out of style in design. There's subway tile. There used to be the little subway tiles. Now it's the 4 by 20, the 4 by 20 by 12. And there's different ways you can use that subway tile and patterns to make it look different and make it look more modern and things of that nature. But it's also too, know the house, the era of the house that you're doing. We have an old farmhouse. I'm not putting modern flat front panel cabinets in that house, right? I need to speak to that. We're project managing a house in West Bridgewater. It's an old farmhouse on a lot of acreage. It used to be, when we rolled up on it, it was this ugly brown color. And so we needed to paint it. And so I'm like, this is a traditional home. You have to decide what it is. When you walk into this home, it's a very traditional home. So I, went to, paint as your friend in design. It's one of the cheapest ways to make a giant impact. And so I tend to like to do saturated palettes on the outside of a house. If you have been to my house, it's a giant red house. It's not a little red, it's red. Another house that we did was a very charcoal house. This is a blue house. And because it had traditional lines to it when you walk in, this beautiful molding that they left in the house, thank goodness. But it's a traditional home. So when you're doing that, it sort of answers a lot of questions for you. Because if you know that you're doing traditional, or if you're doing modern, or if you're doing contemporary, or Scandinavian design, it sort of drives you to certain things, right? Because we were at Floor and Decor the other day, and we'll do it on another session, but I legitimately picked up, I think it was 20 different subway tiles, white subway tiles, 20 of them. So it can be overwhelming when you go into these big warehousey type stores, like, what do I choose? But if and in this case, we'll use the house that we're doing right now as a composite, but if you're doing traditional, it weeds out a whole bunch of things. It's like, well, that's not the style I'm going for. So I can just focus in on what the styling is that you want to do. But the biggest, going back to, it's not your house, you can't get emotionally attached. We want to produce a great product, and you will do that, but you can't say, oh, well, I would like this in my house. Because your style is your style, and that's great. And I see people sort of smiling at each other in the audience.
Because
but
it's hard. It's a struggle.
It's a hard thing to detach yourself from, because again, it's your
huge
money that you're spending, but it's not for your own personal use.
Yeah, exactly.
So you have to know basically what most people like. And how do you find that out? It is through HGTV. It is through magazines. It is through open houses and things of that nature. And again, there's a way to do it in a very neutral palette without it being boring. There's plenty of ways to do that.
Well, because you said a lot, so and people taking notes and all that. So there are two things that you said I think are key. Number one, bringing the house back to what it was before.
Yes.
What did I say, y'all?
Bringing the house back to what it was
that
before.
will tell you a lot about what you should do with a house. It's almost like you become a house whisperer. You begin to talk to her, be like, what were you initially? Now, and sometimes what you can do is you can go, and sometimes what we found that there's always like pictures of what the house used to be.
on record,
or somebody would give you a picture, or somehow we always come up against pictures.
you can look it up on. If you Google it, there's usually old MLS.
So that's a major tip. If you can find out what the house was when it was originally built, that helps you. But then number two, the biggest thing you said was personally divorcing yourself from the fact that this is not your house and you will not be living there. And I think that takes some time to get that. And then the third thing I would add is, in particular with Rob is the only man, and Jonathan's in here today too, but sometimes if it's just men doing it, it's a very masculine energy in the house. You know, and the men like, I like that. Well, like, yeah, but you know, your wife will come and put some purples and some teals and some other things.
Or even
in
just
there.
some finesse, yes.
Or some finesse. And so I think those are some things that as you are talking design, and as we walk through houses and see things on HGTV and things like that, those 2 points are critical that you mentioned up front. Bringing the house back to what it was. And then also, listen, you have to almost continue to tell, I'm actually writing a piece on that, continue to tell yourself this mantra right here. I will not be living here.
And I want this to sell fast.
And yeah, the other half of that. And I want it to sell fast. But continue to tell yourself that as you're making, because whether it's a fix and flip or whatever else, you're making a million decisions on design. Anybody explain, it's like, yeah. This color, that color, this fixture, that fixture. And so the decisions become easier as you go back to what we've talked about thus far, knowing exactly what it was and continue to tell yourself and having your end buyer in mind.
Exactly. And I think it's too, from a standpoint of you have to have vision when you walk into some of these houses. You know, most of the houses that you go to that you're going to flip they're probably going to be sort of ugly because that's why you're getting a good price. That's why you're getting a good price, right? Exactly. That's the business that we're in. And so being able to look past some of the crazy things that people do in homes. We've all been in houses. You walked in and you're like, why did they do this? Or why did they do that? And everybody, it's their house. They get to do what they want with it. But as a flipper, you're trying to bring it back to how most people live. And I think the other thing, too, that you mentioned well, you can tell when a male flipper has done a house because things are sort of stark and they're, what I try to do is say, how would I live in this home? Well, how would most people live in this home? What functionally, what makes sense? And to be able to look past some of the things that have been done to the house. We did a house in New Bedford. We flipped it last year. And it was the Howard Johnson house. It was peach and green on the outside, and it was navy blue and white checkerboard tile in the kitchen, and
very specific. And
geometric. Everything had a geometric shape to it. They had cutouts in the walls and cut in archways, and it was a lot when you walked in. And you have to look back past that to say, what would I do with that? Like this functionally doesn't make sense. I'm walking through two little doorways between the kitchen and the dining room. That doesn't make sense from the way people live, right? So we just squared that off and made a cased opening and cased opened the entry into the kitchen from the kitchen into the dining room, and just like opened it up, and it made it feel like a very different house. And it's just one of those things where that was also a very traditional house, but someone had put some really funky things in there.
But tell them why he did that.
So we found out later, and Eddie can show a picture of it when he has time, of the before and the after on the outside. But this gentleman who owned the house before we did, he was from Cape Verde, and that was the colors of his house in Cape Verde. So that totally translates. So you can see it was peach and green, and then we painted it charcoal gray and I wanted the door to pop on the outside so that when people were scrolling through MLS that they would be like, ooh, look at that yellow door. So people actually, when we painted the house, we went for a visit and they were like, thanking us for painting the house. Actually, one gentleman came over. He's like, "Did you know what this looked like before?" And we're like, "Yes, we did. We own this house." And they're like, "Oh, thank you so much for painting it." And the other thing about outside colors, just to think about how you even pick an outside color. I stand in the middle, in the middle of the street, and I look around and I see what color the houses are around it. True. And in this particular case, there were a lot of whites, there were a lot of light grays. There were, I'm just like, want to make a statement. It was on the corner, you know what I mean? I wanted it to be bold. And it was one of those things where I'm like, what's a traditional color, and you can go to paint stores and look up the traditional colors. Like you can Google that. What are traditional farmhouse colors? What are traditional early Americana colors? And colonial colors and things of that nature. And so there's a lot of things that sort of that can get answered for you by just doing a quick little search. And so we came up with this, there's no other charcoal gray house. We're going to do this charcoal gray. We're going to do this stark white for the contrast, and we're going to put a yellow doors that we actually did. Every door was yellow all the way around. Except for the pop. And it worked. We sold it the first weekend we put it on the market. So
and I think one of the things that's critical is, as Kendra was talking about, the community that you're in. We painted that house, but we could have sided. We looked at siding it versus painting it, and really, this is one of the questions we'll look at later on, but you have to get a sense of what community you're going to be in. New Bedford is a very working class, siding. Some houses are painted, but for the most part, a lot of houses are sided.
For sure.
And so those are part of your design decisions when you're looking at, what should we do? And there's a lot of it is based off what's already in that neighborhood. And
what's acceptable.
Yeah, what's acceptable and all that, because how many of us have gone through a neighborhood and they're just super modern house and this
sort of traditional
neighborhood, and you're just like, okay, now I'm in Mars. And so sometimes it doesn't make sense. And so one of the tips you want to do is really walk around the neighborhood and get a sense of, what is the neighborhood like now? Because you don't want to be that house at the corner like that house was. That was a house on the corner that is sort of like a landmark house, where it's okay. You'll see a peach house, take a right there. You don't want to design that now. If you lived there, that's something else, but you don't want to design that type of house because you want to get to as many people as possible. So.
Yep. And I think too, the decisions that you make are very much monetary, right? So I wanted to paint the house because there was a lot of character to it that I didn't want to lose, because when you side a house, you tend to lose a lot of the character. And basically we costed it out. Painting, siding. They were about the same. I won. I got what I wanted.
Well, painting, siding, and then we did the other one too.
Oh, we did the cement board.
The cement board, which was
astronomical.
Way a lot more than to side it versus paint.
Yeah. So it's obviously like, what do I want, right? What I feel like I want for this house? But then you cost it out, right? Because we were definitely going the siding route for a really long time, and then siding prices went up, and so it was a nominal difference. It's and so we went ahead and painted it.
Right.
And most of the wood was great. If most of the wood wasn't great, obviously we would have sided it, right? So there's those decisions of what do you want, like what's your vision for the house? What makes financial sense?
Correct. And
what is the condition of the house? What is the true material condition of this house? And most of the wood was great. We had one section that was rotted, but for the most part it was solid.
Right.
And that's what you work with your contractor on. Like, this is what I'd like to do. What would you think? What should you do? But it's ultimately he's giving advice. He or she is giving advice, and it's up to you to do the work of tell me what the pricing is, this to that. This is what, it's really comes down to your budget.
True. And
what you want to have done in the house.
Now talk about some other things that are what I call very functional, but also they look nice. What other things? So you mentioned subway tile. What other things that people can do as they're looking at that? Because one of the things that I'm better at it now, but if you've never done this and you go through like a floor and decor, you're just like, where do I start? And so I think what you'll do as you get better at this, you'll have sort of like templates. Like we have sort of templates that you have a template. I just can't follow you, but she's my template. But for the most part, because we've done a few of them, you'll get a sense of what your style is.
Yep.
So what are some other things that people should look for now? And there are a couple of things that I'm gonna say. So actually, if you miss it, I'll catch it. Okay. Go ahead.
But if you think about some of the biggest expenses, right? There's obviously the outside of the house. There's the roof if it needs to be done. It's also, but things that will cost quite a bit of money is flooring. So you walk into a house and you're just like, what you're always around here really hoping for, if there's carpet on the floor, you hope when you rip it up there's some nice hardwood floor that you can redo. Right. So you're always looking and sort of taking inventory of what are the assets this house already has.
Yes. But back up. No, that's good right there. I just wrote that in my notes, but go ahead. What did she say? What does the house already have as an asset? And what you have to do as a business owner, you got to watch your people. Because they'll go through and they'll just be throwing everything out. Matter of fact, we dug 2 doors out
The other day, out of a trash pile.
out of a trash pile last Friday, I think it was. And we were like, hold up, don't throw these out.
We can use those.
We can use those. And so refurbishing is your friend. What did I say?
Refurbishing
is your friend. So you want to look at, I mean, 'cause some things, like old doors, like those 4-pane doors and things of that nature,
doors,
hardwood floors, they can't even find them anymore.
Yep.
You know,
Or it's very cost prohibitive.
Yeah, or they're very cost prohibitive. And so you want to make sure that as much as you can, because your people, they're not thinking like you. They're not thinking business. You're thinking business. And what I want to do is I want to save as much as I can. I want to refurbish what I can, because I can, or maybe a door that was in the basement we can pull up and use it in the bedroom, which we've done in times past. You know, and so be thinking like that. So go ahead.
Yeah, so when you walk in, you know, if there's carpet, and honestly, when we do go to open houses, you know, you'll see other people have done it. They go to a corner and they pull it back just a little bit and say, "Is there hardwood floor under there?" Because
yes.
Because if there is, you're like, "That's great." And then if there's not, you know that you're going to have to either recarpet or do something there, depending on your budget. In the house that we're doing right now, there's beautiful molding, which they saved, which is awesome. They have pocket doors, it's really great. But they ripped out all the flooring in the kitchen and in the bathroom and in all of the other bedrooms. Like they kept it in the living room and the dining room. They ripped everything else out. So we're gonna keep that, right? And then we get to run beautiful tile, right? All the way through the kitchen, all the way through the bathroom, the back hallway, and then we're gonna carpet the bedrooms, because carpeting is the cheapest thing for flooring, bottom line. And there are 2 camps on carpeting. Me personally, from my house, I would not do it, but this is not my house. So from a budgetary perspective, and a lot of people like carpet in their bedrooms, we are putting carpet into the bedrooms here at this house. We're actually doing the second floor too.
With much weeping and gnashing of teeth.
It's not what I would prefer. I would not prefer that in my personal home, but from a budget perspective, that's what makes sense. And then
in this case,
carpet is also a really good noise canceling. So we're putting it upstairs also because there's going to be a bedroom up there. There's going to be people walking around, so it'll help with the noise canceling there too. So again, a decision that, you know, this is not my house. And this is really not my house because we don't own it. We're just project managing it, and it's not our money. But, you know, based on the budget, you know, would it have been lovely to run hardwood floors all through it? And would people have walked in and be like, "Oh my goodness, there's hardwood floors everywhere"? Absolutely. They will be super happy with the hardwood floor that's there. They'll be super happy with the tile choice that we make to put in the kitchen. And what we tend to do is make a commitment. You don't have to have 15,000 different floors in your house. If you're going to put it, like we have, the kitchen is a central place in the house, we will have that same tile that runs through the kitchen, the bathroom, the back hallway. It gives you consistency. What happens was sometimes when you see like your eye is floating all over the place because it's like, oh, there's this there and this there. You're trying to keep things that calm houses tend to have less things. When you walk into a house and it's calm, it's because everything sort of flows together. There's not too much to, you know, your eye to dot around on. And it actually is less money to do that also, because the more tile choices or flooring choices or whatever any choices, because the tilers have to cut things, and if you are doing this tile here and this tile there and this, you actually spend more money because they have to cut things up. This way they can use that same offcut in another spot that they're doing in the bathroom. So I just like that consistency. We had done a house in Brockton, and from the front door all the way back through the hallway, kitchen, all of it through, we did the same tile. And
big tile too.
It was huge. It was 24 by 24. And the reason why I did that is our budget was super tight there, and the bigger your tile, the less labor.
Right.
So when you're pricing tiling out, you ask your contractor, how much tile do I need, and you know.
How much you going to charge me to put it in?
Right, exactly. So it's the materials and it's the labor. But
Right.
if you come with a bigger tile, it's less labor because they're covering more square footage with less work. So
like that.
yeah. So the smaller the tile, the more money. The bigger the tile, the less money. But again, that house I chose, it was a 24 by 24 format tile is sort of modern. This was not a modern house, but I did it in this gray that looked sort of like marble, and so it looked traditional,
Right.
even though it was more of a, it was sort of a modern.
And to think about that, we had to go do that because originally when we first were going to do it, we were going to keep it, but somehow during the rehab,
There was marble in the front hallway, and somebody took it up. Yep.
It got cracked somehow that they ended up taking it up, and then so we had to make another decision. So
Yep.
one of the things we talk about when you're doing this is making sure that you're always, at least, I believe at least once a week, you should walk your job site. Because things just tend to happen. And so, oh, I don't know who broke this. I don't know where it went. This, I don't know. You know, my dog, the dog ate the cat, and da da da. You know, and so these type of things tend to happen. And so if you don't keep an eye on your business and keep an eye on your things like that happen. But initially we're not going to go that gray.
Yeah.
But then because of the crack, we had to do that.
Yep.
Yeah.
They should. Yep, absolutely. So you have to be in control of your job site for sure, and hold people responsible because things happen for sure.
Yeah. Now talk about. So you talked a little bit. Anybody got any questions based off what we talked about so far?
I have a question.
Hold on one second.
Let
I have a question in regards to the job site. What if you're doing something, out of state or a place, and you can't get there?
You make them
Weekly.
FaceTime you.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
And you say, like, we're going to have a standing meeting
walk me
at
through,
Friday
and
at
walk
3
me
o'clock,
through.
and you're going to walk me through
Walk me
everything.
through the property.
And have them go slow.
Yep. That's what you do.
Because they'll be like, if they're zipping around, they're trying not to so much show you what's going on.
Nope.
And also, too, if you are have a
Pictures.
partner in real estate there, right?
Boots on ground.
Ask them if they can go by and check it out for you. Getting, one of the things you're further away in Atlanta, obviously, but for us in New Bedford, it's not down the street. So we have been blessed that we've had people boots on the grounds where we could have someone walk by, or even our friend Scott, he would go by unannounced and take pictures and say, hey, this is what's going on at the house today. You know what I mean?
Did you know this was going on?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's great to just get partnerships where
Yeah,
people can go there
exactly.
live. But at the bare minimum, just to make sure that they know that you're going to call, that there will be a FaceTime call, and they will walk you through everything
Weekly.
that's done weekly.
Yeah.
And that will, and I would say, especially in that case, because you can't get there, the way you pay them is super important. Meaning, like when we deal with contractors up here, it's usually they get paid a third, and a third of the total job. I would say that even more importantly for you, when you're doing super long distance, is that you're not paying them too much. And it might be, as opposed to a third, it might be a fourth. They need to know that you will withhold funds if you're not happy with what's happening.
Right.
And I think the other thing too, which is interesting in this dynamic, is you want a great partner from a general contractor, plumbing, electrical, whatever. But you need to upfront establish that you're the one in charge. Like that, this is your money, this is your job, and this is the way it's going to go.
Right.
When someone's trying to dictate to you what they want to do with your money, it's not okay. No. You know what I mean? And I think that I have the benefit of my big tall husband standing next to me at most of these meetings, because I have had situations where they didn't know who I was, or maybe they did. And they were like, yeah, and then he walked in and he's like, oh, and I'm just like, oh, no, like you're gonna have to listen to me too.
Whatever she said.
It's like establishing that, we want great working relationships, and we don't want it to be contentious, and we've been very fortunate. But it's one of those things where you have to be able to say, oh, no, that's not what we're doing. We just had a situation where we had to have some plans drawn up at the house we're project managing, and we met the architect out there, and he was like, oh, we could do this. And I'm like, oh, no. We're way far down on this. This is what we're doing. Just please draw that out, right? And where if maybe I was, further.
If you were willy-nilly, he would have changed the whole floor.
And we would have spent way more money.
That would have been a whole nother, more money and more time.
Yeah,
because time is everything in this business, correct?
Yep.
And so you want to get things done, obviously, as fast as possible, so whether you flipping it or renting it out. And so, part of what Kendra's talking about is making sure that recognize you're the boss. Say that. I'm the boss. So you're telling them what to do. Now, it's good to have a contractor who sort of works with you and can give you suggestions.
Right.
And say this is what would look good and things. So that's good.
Yep.
But the final decision really boils down to you. And so a lot of times what I find, and particularly when you're new starting out, people let the contractor dictate what they do. And it's like, no, we're not doing that. This is because sometimes if they're lazy, not I'm saying all of them, but some of them, if they don't want to do the work, they'll come up with some half behind solution. And just like, well, that's not the best way to do this. And based off what I'm trying to do, you may have to push them.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Or they like to do something a certain way.
True.
So do your own research. So for instance, we were not going to put hardwood floors in one of our projects because someone's like, oh, there's so much money. There's no way you can afford that.
Yeah.
And then we went and researched it.
We went to not Floor & Decor. We went to LL Flooring and found a price that we liked.
Yep. And we were able to put hardwood floors in. So do your own, like, they talk like it's true, obviously, but like do your own homework.
Trust and verify.
Yes.
Is what I believe. So that's what you want to do. And then also, if you have a question, because we know a lot of people call us about, hey, they're saying there's $200 windows. What are you finding? Because of this network and other networks I'm a part of, we can get pretty good prices, things of that nature. And so, don't be afraid to say my contractor says is this, to say, you know what, let me go and see if I could do some research and get something cheaper because cheaper not always the best.
Correct.
Sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. But my bottom line, what you're saying is don't take their word as a gospel.
Do your own research.
Do your own research, yeah. Because we definitely want to put hardwood floors in based off what he was saying. And then when we went and looked at it on our own, it was much cheaper than we thought it was going to be.
Yep.
And that was actually one of the things that sold the house.
It was
because we put hardwood floors in.
Yep.
So it worked out.
It did work out.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that house actually, we thought we could save the hardwood floors, but they had done so many crazy things to them. They were all different layers. And that's the other thing too. You can go in with a plan. You're going to go in with a plan, right? This is what I think I'm going to do. But then you have to roll with the punches, which I think a lot of people have a hard time with, right? It's just like, I thought this is what we were doing, and now it's changed because different decisions have to be made, right? So for instance, on that particular house, because we were doing the electrical over, the city is trying to get rid of all of the telephone pole or all the poles in the neighborhoods.
It was all the electrical wires off the poles.
Yeah, so basically we were getting electrical, but it was like attached to the other people's house, which is no bueno.
Bootleg back in the day thing that was good back then. That's not good.
But they
now.
made us dig a trench to a new supply, which was way more like we didn't have that in the budget. There was that was not on our radar.
Like what you guys had to do.
Yeah, and so you have to just be ready for different things that will happen, because we definitely had not budgeted for the hardwood floors we had to eventually put in because we had hardwood floors, but because they were so damaged, they put so many nails on them. They had put plywood over them, and it was just we could not salvage them.
Yeah.
So we had to make a different decision, right? That's when you look at your budget again. It's just like, all right, you research what the best option for you is, and then you figure out what to do from there. But it's one of those things where you just have to continue to roll with the punches. And I think that is one of the, I think a lot of people struggle with that or get disappointed, right? And sort of swirl around the fact that what was supposed to happen is no longer happening, but you have to make a quick decision because the contractor's looking at you like, I've got guys coming tomorrow, what do you want to do?
Yeah, you got to pivot quickly.
Or you might have picked out a tile and you go buy it and they don't have enough square footage. Well, you better go pick out another one. You know what I mean? It's like, this is how much I need. Let's go pick out the next best option.
Right.
That's sort of in the same,
same family.
The same family of look and feel. Right. But you have to make those decisions.
Now let's switch hats. Talk about designing for a rental, because that's a very different hat. So you'll have a rental that you may buy, and then there's a fix and flip. So fix and flip is when you have a retail buyer in mind, think HGTV type stuff. But then there's something that you may buy that you may say well, it could be a one family, but most time it's multifamily that you want to rent out. Talk about that.
I can walk you through our two-family in New Bedford. So the two-family in New Bedford had been vacant for at least 10 years, I believe, they told us. And it looked
It's a better story 10 years, but go ahead.
It was a while. Nobody had lived there for a long time. It was a foreclosed property. And it was just super sad. Another corner house. And we did decide to redo the porches on this house. Because legitimately they were
weren't safe.
falling
Yeah,
off.
they weren't safe.
But it was interesting because it was a debate, right? So the cheapest thing to do would have been take them down and just do walk-ups, right? No porch, no nothing. My husband was in that camp. Our friend Scott was in that camp. And I'm like, no, because part of what we try to do is we try to better the neighborhood, right? We're not just there to make a buck. We're there to enhance the neighborhood and, do good business, right? So we decided to take those porches off and put new ones on, which was, it was $20,000. It wasn't 2 cents. But what that did for, legitimately, even then, we had neighbors coming by and like, oh my goodness, look at the porch. This house has been derelict. Nobody wants to live next to a derelict house. Nobody wants a derelict house in their neighborhood. And so they were super appreciative. And then there's no yard at this house, no yard. Which is great from our maintenance, but I was just like, these folks that we rent to will have no way to be outside. So I'm just like, we can just give them these porches. They weren't mammoth, and we did those. And then what we did inside was great. Fortunately, on the first floor, the flooring was fine. There was some hideous tile in the kitchen. We legitimately painted over the tile. So you can take, as long as the tile is in good condition,
you can paint it.
There's this stuff that the contractor will paint on it, and you can paint right over it.
Yep.
And that was,
And actually, when most houses I walk into with tile, my first question is, can we paint over it?
Yep, because you can either paint them or in the bathroom or even in the kitchen, you can reglaze, right? So we have reglazed tubs and reglazed tile, right? If everything is in good condition, maybe needs some caulking put on it or whatever, you can reglaze it and it looks spanking new.
It looks really nice.
And the amount of work that saves instead of ripping it out is amazing, and it looks great. Things are perfectly fine. You would never know. So we reglazed the one in New Bedford in the Peach House, and the tub in there, and it was beautiful. But
actually, to reglaze the tub was like $300.
It was like no money. And it was in a couple hours. The guy comes.
And it came out beautiful.
And it came out beautiful.
Yeah.
I actually convinced our daughter was doing her bathroom over in her house, and I was like, just reglaze it because it's like an old tub, like a really, you can't get them like that anymore. And she's like, no, I'm gonna rip it out. And please don't. And then she was so happy that she just reglazed it, from the pricing, but also just it's a really good tub.
Yeah. But it goes back to what we talked about earlier. A lot of stuff, if it's good quality in your house, you can bring it back to what it used to be. So begin to think about the first question you should ask yourself: can I bring this back? As opposed to, it's old, I'm throwing it out now. I thought like that too when we first went through, but then I'm thinking particularly the floors, because I'm like, ain't no way we can save these floors. And then our floor guy came in, and I'm just like, oh my, that's the same floor. So just in your mind, begin to think about, as I'm going through these properties, are there things that I can keep? So whether I'm fixing or flipping or renting or whatever, and particularly if you're renting, because that's a whole nother mindset, because a rental gives you a little bit more leeway because you're going to hold it a little bit longer. And so you could do a little different thing. Now, if you're flicking and flipping, you're trying to get out of it fairly quickly and things of that nature.
Yeah, because so we painted the tile in that kitchen, and we kept the cabinets that were there.
Sure did.
We did not even paint them. We just took
fixtures.
We just took the old countertop off, put new countertop on, and we put new fixtures in, legitimately. So for me, from a rental perspective, you want to make it very comfortable, right? But you don't want to overdo it so that if someone trashes your apartment, that you are super sad about it. The way I think about it, or the way I try to make myself feel about it, is that, am I going to be okay if this gets destroyed? Because it'll happen. It might happen. I'm not,
it's going to happen either through wear and
tear, or someone's going to be diligent. But that's
the bottom line.
And that's why your releases are so important on your rentals. That yes, there's a security deposit, but in your lease it has to say if you do damage above and beyond, you are still liable for that, right? So it's one of those things where when you put those safety guards in, it's just like, most people are like, oh my goodness, I don't want to lose anything. But as long as your lease has the safety guards in it to make that okay, then you know that you're not going to be left short, right? Because you have legal documentation to help you out with that. Right. But back to design, from that house, there was this really odd open space in that house, and obviously the more bedrooms you have, the more money you make.
You can charge.
And
right.
we actually created another bedroom on that floor. So we turned it from a 2-1 into a 3-1.
Yeah, exactly.
And and it was really good. Like, because it was the weirdest. It was like there was two dining rooms, and I'm like, why is there two dining rooms?
Yeah, like
the other thing in New Bedford, which is interesting, is every house you go, not every house, but a lot of the houses in a certain era have a chimney in the middle of the living room. And it's because they have and you'll go into some of the houses and they still have the heating unit that used to hook into it. So that's standard in New Bedford. Standard.
And bidets.
So and bidets also standard. Wasn't prepared for that. But so, in a perfect world, those chimneys wouldn't be there, but everybody in New Bedford's used to it, right? For me, I'm just like, oh, this is so weird. What is it doing? Do we take it down? But there's no need to take it down. That's like, it's knowing the area that you're in. That's regular. And the same thing with, if we walk into a house that has one of those big giant heaters, if it's still working, you leave it, right? Yeah. When you're flipping or renting, you're trying to not spend too much money, right? So it's one of those things like, what's acceptable there? Bidets are acceptable in New Bedford.
Though we took 2 out.
We did take 2 out. I'm not gonna lie.
We took them out
because we were redoing the bathrooms. But if we weren't redoing the bathrooms,
we may have left them.
We might have left them there. Yeah. In our rental, we painted, we cleaned up the tiles in the bathrooms, but we didn't. That's all we did. We did take a bidet out, but it made room for a closet too, so that made more sense. But it's
but I do think when you're looking at a rental, your mindset is totally different.
100%.
100% different, and you're thinking, and now I find most people struggle at when they're trying to go for a rental. They're thinking, oh, am I going to be a slumlord and da-da-da? And it's like, no, I'm thinking clean, safe, and durable.
Yeah.
And those are my 3 words. So is this place clean, meaning would I live here?
Yep.
Is it clean enough for me to live here? Yes. Is it safe? Yes, because we put in fire alarms and we did all that type of stuff to make sure the house is safe. And is the stuff that we are putting in it, is it going to be durable? Meaning,
is it going to last?
Is it going to last? If Ray come in here and tear something up, is it going to stand the test of time? And so that.
Yeah, don't try to cheap out on a rental, because you will pay for it in the end. Because if you use cheap materials, you'll have to continue to redo them over and over and over again. But if you do good quality things, it'll last you, which is great.
Exactly.
Yep. And I think too, in that the upstairs gave us a gift. There was all this ugly, gross carpet. We lifted it up. There was hardwood floor under there.
Goodness. Yeah, those are nice.
But there was tar paper all over it, and they scraped that for days. But they came out beautiful. So that was great. And
initially we were going to leave the carpet.
We were going to try to clean it.
We were going to clean the carpet, and then the guy said, "Oh, you got nice hardwoods underneath here."
So we ripped them up.
And so when I go into a house and I see carpet, I'm thinking, to your point earlier, you're thinking what's underneath.
Yep.
And if you got nice stuff underneath.
Yeah, and if it's a rental, I don't recommend carpet. It gets really gross really quick.
Yeah.
So it's tile and it's hardwood floors and it's laminate because it's easy to clean.
Talk laminate.
Sure. So good news is, from a hardwood floor is obviously the most pricey, and honestly it runs from like $3 a square foot. We were in Floor & Decor the other day to like $8 a square foot, $9. It just depends on what it's made out of, right?
True.
What kind of wood it is. So you have hardwood, and then you have laminate, which has like a layer of hardwood, but then there's usually cork underneath it or some kind of something. That's middle range, and then there's luxury
LVP.
I always say it wrong. Luxury plank vinyl, which also looks good these days. Also, say again. So there's lots of options to make things look like hardwood when they're not being hardwood. And the thing about LVP is that it's actually really super durable and very water resistant, which is great too. Because obviously, you just want to
spill stuff.
You just want to make your stuff a little bit non-destructible. So that's totally doable. We did put in that house, though, we put carpet in the 3rd floor because there was nothing there. It was the cheapest option. And it's being used as a playroom right now.
It was more of an industrial carpet.
It was we did an industrial carpet up there, but it's not like harsh industrial carpet. So yeah, it's more like, what is the use of it? What do I want to, what do we feel like? Who are we renting to? How do I make it good? Use good materials so that I'm not having to replace. Like, well, what you want to make sure is that I want to feel good about who I'm renting to and what product I've given them. Right? Someone's giving. It's a trade-off. They're paying us to live somewhere, and I want it to be that they're happy where they're living. Because happy tenants
Stay.
They pay on time, and you can feel good about it. You know what I mean? Like when they call us, we're right over there fixing something, doing whatever we need to do. You know, like there's no like waiting.
Right.
Even if it's something, you know, that they did, it's just like, we're gonna go fix that, right? It's just like, or get it fixed or call a friend or whatever. But we want it to be that the materials that we're using are, you know, good, they'll last. And when those people leave, we'll get a cleaning crew in there and see what's going on and repaint and keep it moving. So.
And I think paint, you mentioned it earlier, but paint is your friend. You know, you'll be surprised at what a fresh coat of paint will do for any room. You know, fixtures, what it will do for any bathroom, cabinets. You know, because I think I was on a call, I think last Thursday, and this guy had not done any properties as of yet. And so the call was being led by a guy, Chris Coy, who's very experienced. And the guy would say, oh yeah, the rehab is going to be this, and I'm going to rip everything out. And as we looked, we were like, you don't need to rip that out. You don't need to rip that out. And so one of my big things I want you guys to leave here with is always see what you can keep.
Yep. Trim is, you know, everything
you know,
adds
cabinets,
up. Yep.
You know,
Everything
if they're
adds
not
up.
flimsy, you know, paint. You know, you can paint cabinets fairly easy and change them out and be good to go. You know, so that saves you money, because the more money that you save, there's more profit that you get to keep. Or if you don't spend it there, you can put it in another area of your house. You know what I mean? And so always look to see what you can keep.
Yep. And one thing that we do a lot is we choose a fixture finish, brushed nickel.
Right, that's good.
Brushed,
I meant to ask you that. Yep. Talk about that.
Brushed brass, whatever it is. You choose one, whatever one you like, that makes sense. And I do it everywhere. Lighting fixtures, the plates on the electrical plates, the door handles, the doorknob, everything. I do a massive order from Lowe's. It gets delivered to the house, and the contractors put it up, whatever. But it
looks good.
Doing the paint and doing consistent fixturing, doesn't matter where it is, kitchen, living room, doesn't matter. Just brings a cohesiveness to the house. And it actually just helps you not have to make so many decisions. It's like, I've chosen brushed nickel. And yes, some people, you know, you'll watch HE, we did all these mixed metals, and that's great.
No, you can.
And you can. But from whatever doorknob I'm using can be used on any door. So that way, if I forgot to buy one, you know, like, or if I haven't, like, it can just go somewhere else. It's just less, there's so many decisions to make. To your point, it can get overwhelming. So like, my whole thing from a formula perspective is, what wall, you know, we're painting all the walls a color, we're painting all the trim a color, we're doing all the same fixtures, the same satin finish. On the New Bedford house, it's a very nautical area. I did sort of nautically lights, but it's all like in the price point that I was willing to spend. But that was a flip. So.
Yeah, but that gives it a beautiful look. All that the same the nickel that you use. You know, it really brings
it's a cohesiveness to it.
to the property. You know, so that's a design tip, and it because as you do more of these, and I think about this, we go through neighborhoods and you can see that there's the same builder. You notice the same. He built this house. He built these 20 houses. Well, they're not making an individual decision on each house. They decided, okay, we got 10 houses that we're making, and then we're putting the same thing in it. So, in order to think more multiplication on the masses, it's the same thing. You do it now. Obviously, if it's your own house, that's something different. But you know, as we're talking about whether it's a rental or whether you're fixing and flipping, that's one of the things that allows you to move faster. And the key is you have to move what? As fast as you can. And so the less decisions that you have to make along those lines, the easier it is.
And I will say, you know, be in control of your materials, because usually when you do all of this stuff, you're buying the tile, you're buying the flooring, you're buying whatever. Make sure your contractor knows whatever's extra, put it over here, because you know, we'll do a return. It'll be hundreds of dollars, right? It all adds up, is what I would say. And so, be mindful of your inventory. Be mindful of making sure like, oh, you guys are done. Where are all the extra boxes? And taking
Right.
that stuff with you and returning it, because that all goes to your bottom
And
line.
even I'm thinking about the house that we did. They had the hanging light, and they were going to throw it out. I'm like, don't throw that out. So we took it. I think we took it home, and then we actually put it someplace else in that house.
We did.
Yeah.
Again, it's like when you walk in, when you've made that purchase, go through and be like, this is all the stuff I'm
keeping
keeping.
this, yep.
And you walk through with your contract.
Yep.
This is all the stuff we're keeping. Like, take note.
Yep.
And some contractors just start leaving stickies. Keep, don't touch. That type
Put it in
of
the
thing.
garage.
Put it in the garage.
Have to
Yep.
take it home. Do whatever you need to do. But there's some things that you can realize, we said earlier, that you can repurpose in your house.
Because it saves you money.
It saves you money.
Yep.
It saves you money. So
We only have 7 minutes left.
we got 7 minutes left. So anything that you want to say to the people or around design that we may have missed?
I think the biggest thing is like, don't get yourself overwhelmed. And get a partner to go through it, because honestly, walking into Floor and Decor, you can get real
My goodness.
real turned around, and all the decisions you have to make. But I think if you hold true to what the house was intended, is it a traditional house? Is it a contemporary house? Is it a farmhouse? And if you stick with that, it makes the decisions really a lot easier.
Yeah, a lot easier.
A lot easier.
And I think that, as we've talked, I think that's the biggest thing, bringing a house back to what it was.
Yep. And remembering you're not living there.
Yeah, and remember you're not living there. If you guys walk away with those 2 tips, you will nail it. And then also, if you buy enough stuff from some of these stores, they have free design services
Yep.
and things that who will sit down with. Like we had a lady in Florida the other day. She wanted to sit down with us, but we were already set. So maybe you make an appointment and say, hey, look, I'm just doing this for the first time or the second time, or maybe you want to expand your borders a little bit, and so have somebody else sort of pick your brain. You can pick their brain a little bit around.
And if
that
you use
is
them,
also
just
helpful.
make sure they know your budget.
So,
Yep.
questions? Any more questions out there? Comments?
What kind of countertop material would you use in a rental?
So that's a great question. So use the most durable thing out there, which is quartz right now. But because honestly, putting stone in your house really raises the cachet of your apartment. You know what I mean? So a lot of people will put in like laminate or butcher block is nice also, but it's porous, right? So you want something that's like literally indestructible, which quartz is. So you might pay a little extra, but it will last you so much longer than other things. Because like granite needs to be sealed and marble will stain, and obviously if you're doing a rental, you're not doing marble anyway. But quartz, I think right now at this moment is like the best thing out there from a durability perspective. Yeah, but I will also say though, if it's like, let's just say that's not in the budget, there are some really pretty, they've come up, just like the LVP flooring has come a long way, so hasn't like laminate countertops. So it's not out of the possibility. It's just, I don't think because it's made out of particle board, you're not going to have the life that you want out of that if you're in there for the long haul.
Right.
Because basically it sort of falls apart
falls
after
apart.
a while.
Yeah.
After a while,
Yeah.
if it gets any
It's
water
wear-
on
it's wear
it,
and
it
tear.
just
It's wear and tear.
But quartz definitely will, hold its ground.
Right.
It's man-made, so it's less than a real stone and things of that nature. And I guess it's always the cost comparison, like what's in the budget to do, right? So you
True.
make, and maybe you go laminate, and in 2 years you're gonna
Right.
you'll replace that, right?
Right. Because there are short-term decisions and long-term decisions.
Absolutely.
Because there are things that we didn't do initially, but now we fixed the garage and did
Exactly.
different things, but we didn't do that
Initially,
in year one.
Yep, we didn't touch it.
So if you're going to keep a house at least 3-5 years or so, you may say, well, this is next year's project.
Yep.
Because you're always looking to increase revenue and things of that nature. So
Yeah, because that's a great point. On a rental that you're going to keep for a while, you don't have to do everything. Because you have time with it, right? It's not like a flip where you have to do it and get out of it.
Right.
So it is that you can have that mindset of, especially if let's just say the budget starts getting tight, it's like, I'm going to make these decisions for right now, but I can go back around at it in 2 years
Yeah.
and make a different decision because I still own it. And maybe someone's leaving that apartment, and that's the time that you will then take to go ahead and put those countertops in.
yeah.
It's a great point.
All right. Any more questions? 'Cause we got 3 minutes and then we out of here. Any more questions? For the camera, and then obviously y'all can hang out and talk, but one more question for the TV, and then we'll.
Pastor Kinder, you were talking about flipping houses, and then what? So when you do flip the houses, you don't keep those, right?
Right, you
Is that
sell them
true?
right away.
Okay, so when do you know?
When to flip and when to hold?
Uh-huh.
Excellent
question.
Excellent question.
We just had that. We had this class this week.
So I think it's your mindset of what you want to do with it. And so usually for us, you're making so much more money on a multi to keep as an investment property to rent, right? So when we ran across this 2-family, we're keeping this
Right.
for 2 reasons. A, it was a great deal, but also we know that the value of that house is going to increase because the train's going down to New Bedford, plus it's just raising in general, New Bedford. So we knew we were going to keep that. From a flip perspective, we definitely usually flip singles. You know what I mean?
True.
You're going in, you're making it look, really nice, and you're flipping it and trying to make that profit. Yeah. So, but let's just say that's the beauty of real estate, though. Let's just say that house didn't sell. We could go rent that house. You know what I mean? You can do it as a short-term rental. You can do it as a long-term rental. You can do college students. So just because, again, it's that whole thing, this is a business. So in business, if your first thing that you wanted to happen doesn't happen, you need to know what your second and third options are. So it really is deal by deal. You're hoping, obviously, on a flip that you bought it right, you rehab it in a good amount of time, then sell it at a good profit. That's the whole name of the game.
Right.
But if let's just say it doesn't go that way, you can always just rent it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's other ways to make it work for you.
Always have multiple exit strategies. Never
Excellent
just have
question.
one. Yeah. Always have multiple exit strategies or ways to monetize the property. Because we're working with someone now. Initially, she thought she was going to keep it, and now we're probably leaning towards
Selling it.
flipping it.
Yep.
But the key thing is she bought it right. That's the most important thing. If you buy the property right, you got different options as to what you can do.
And I think that's a really good point too. Like in the New Bedford house, we didn't do the garage, but we just did it. We painted it and refurbished it, and now we can rent that. So when you have investment property, you need to monetize every single thing.
Everything you can.
So interestingly enough, on that house, there's a 3rd floor. Yep, there's a 3rd floor, and when the tenants move out, we will probably put the sprinklers in and make it a 3-family. That's the long road.
So, yeah, we'll see. Great question, Mother. Give it up, guys. Great class. And as always, if you guys are watching on TV, so you can, our email should be up there fairly soon. Let's talk real estate, re12@gmail.com. Got any questions real estate related? Send us an email on that. We'll be back next month. I don't know exactly what we're going to do. We did do our commercial already talking about our
summit?
June 10th. Our June 10th real estate summit, that's live, so you want to make sure you sign up for that. I only have 150 seats, and when it's over, it's over. So I want you on the outside looking in. Actually, I forgot to show the shirt. I know I had this shirt. This is the shirt that we're going to give y'all. We're actually going to feed you breakfast and lunch, and then we're going to give you a nice shirt. This shirt talk real estate wealth
We have
creators.
great people coming.
So we got good people coming, and so you want to make sure that you are part of that event. All right. Until next time, see you guys next month. Be blessed. Have a good night. Bye-bye. All right. We can have real questions now.